Welcome back. This is Chris, my brother in Christ, Stephen.
Welcome back.
Date today is September 2nd, year of our Savior 2018. And the title of this video is going to be called Giants in the Bible Part 8. So this is important to understand that we're talking about giants. That Nimrod was a giant and he was worshipped. And just like today, I mean, you're dealing with this symbol, folks. This symbol is a giant symbol. That is a giant symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Yep.
All right, so now think about that for a second. Now, well, how many children are missing a year from the United States?
800,000 approximately.
800,000. Now, Moloch was a great child devourer. Now, if we have giants today, perhaps they would have underground bases and all sorts of stuff. What's going on? Perhaps these children are being fed to giants.
Possibly, yeah.
A good theory.
Yep.
Because you never see them again.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this guy, Shem, who slays Nimrod. And so we see that he was cut into pieces. So the supreme judges of Egypt, right, made a solemn declaration in their name that whosoever should do as Osiris or Nimrod had done, so should it be done to him, so should he also be cut in pieces. The sympathizers of the combined system of irreligion and despotism set up by Nimrod, ultimately Satan, had intense abhorrence to all who shared in the conspiracy to slay the mighty hunter. The chief actor Shem, was dignified as Typho, or the evil one. So Shem, the appointed one, was made by his enemies the desolator or destroyer, the devil. The great Egyptian Hercules who overcame the giants was known by several names. One of the names of Sem was Khan, which signifies to lament or priest of the Most High. Now let's take a moment for a second to think about this for a second. You're looking at, in Egypt, that's where you have the, was preserved in Egypt mythology about Osiris, right? Horus. And the whole thing of the brother Set was jealous and killed Horus. And we have Osiris and Isis, and then you have Horus, their son. And so she went and found 13 out of the 14 pieces of Horus, also known as Osiris or Nimrod, and put them together. The only thing that was missing was what? His phallus, his male anatomy. And so that's what was erected in Egypt, and that's what was taken from Egypt and is put right in the center in St. Peter's Basilica of the square and cross. And you have that obelisk right there. And remember that the Jesuits, they're the Baal priests, they're the ones that have been the keepers of astronomy or astrology for over 500 years. And so what is their symbol? IHS, which stands for Isis, Horus, Set. See, it's all connected, folks. It's all connected. So I didn't really think about it, but you have the Star of Moloch, which is also a symbol of the giants. And now Moloch was a great child devourer. Nimrod was sacrificing children. Yeah. Satan was sacrificing children. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, in 2 Samuel 21:16 it says, Ishbi-benob, which was of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, being girded with a new sword, thought David to have slain. Now a shekel weighs approximately 10.5 ounces. So if you take 400 and multiply it by 10.5 ounces, you get like 4,200, and you divide that by 16, that's 262 pounds. 262.5 pounds was what his spear weighed.
Wow.
I mean, that is just pretty. I mean, that's the weight of the spear weighed 262 pounds. Most people can't pick up 262 pounds, much less have a spear that weighs that much that they could throw.
All about giants, folks. Giants in the Bible. You know, it's kind of interesting. Stephen made a good point about, we see this whole concept of anti-Semitic, right? We see that, right? The word. Most people don't really know what anti-Semitic means, but it means comes from the word Shem.
Yeah.
And meaning against Shem. And a lot of times people go, "Oh, you're anti-Shemitic." Well, how can it be anti-Shemitic? Because Shem was a Christian.
Yeah. He wasn't even Jewish.
And so what Satan does is he twists words around and he sets up the star of Moloch, Kiyun Remphan, the giant, the great child devourer, and there's literally a nation created by the United Nations, known as the State of Israel. And then we say, well, they're God's chosen people, and if you disagree, then you're anti-Shem, anti-Shemitic.
Yeah.
And how could I be anti-Shemitic if I'm pro the Word of God? Satan is unbelievably deceptive. So now when Shem had so powerfully wrought upon the minds of men as to induce them to make a terrible example of the great apostate, that's Osiris, Nimrod, or Horus, or Tammuz. And when that apostate's dismembered limbs were sent to the chief cities, where no doubt his system had been established, it will be readily perceived that in these circumstances, if idolatry was to continue, if above all it was a step in the advance, it was indispensable that it should operate in secret. So now they have to operate in secret. That's what they do. They don't operate in the open. The terror of an execution inflicted on one so mighty as Nimrod made it needful that for some time to come, at least the extreme caution should be used. In these circumstances, then began, there can hardly be a doubt that a system of mystery, secrecy, right, which having Babylon for its center had spread over the world. And these mysteries under the seal of secrecy and the sanction of an oath, and by means of all the fertile resources of magic, men were gradually led back to all the idolatry that had been publicly suppressed, while new features were added to that idolatry that made it still more blasphemous than before. Magic and idolatry, secrecy. That's why when you enter secret societies, what do you have? You take a secret oath, right? And then you have layers to see if you're worthy and how adept you are in magic and sorcery. So that magic and idolatry were twin sisters and came into the world. We have abundant evidence. He, Zoroaster, remember the seed, the promised seed that Semiramis counterfeited, that Cain would be the Messiah of the world, that the Messiah would come forth from the seed of the woman. She counterfeited, Genesis 3:15. He, Zoroaster, says, Justin the historian, quote, was said to be the first that invented magic art and that most diligently studied the motions of the heavenly bodies, end quote. So we see once again worshiping the host of heaven, understanding astrology. The Baal priests today understand astrology and astronomy more than anybody. That has been the Jesuits, that has been the Vatican. And from the Jesuits we have what? From the Vatican, from the man of sin, the son of perdition, from Roman Catholicism, what do we have? Heliocentrism, Big Bang was George Lemaitre, right? Put forth the Big Bang theory, evolution. All of this stuff is part of the mystery Babylonian system. Understanding, and then we have the symbol, the giant symbol that so many Christians are like, hey, I'm going to be a Christian Zionist, and I love the Star of Moloch. I love the Star of Rephaim. I love the Star of Remphan. I love the Star of Kiyun, even though they don't know it. But hey, it says, God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So Nimrod established the sciences of magic and astronomy. The secret system of the mysteries established vast facilities for imposing on the senses of the initiated by various tricks and artifices of magic. Then at last, the great god, the central object of worship, Osiris, Tammuz, Nimrod, Adonis, you want to call him Apollo. You know, we have NASA, all about the Apollo missions. Revelation 9:1:1, right? Apollo, Apollyon, all of this stuff, these pagan gods, was revealed to the initiates in a way to soothe their feelings and engage their blind affections. The magical art to capture the minds of man was none other than now made use of in the modern phantasmagoria. Thus, the whole system of the secret mysteries of Babylon was intended to glorify a dead man, and when once the dead giant, and when once the worship of one dead man was established, the worship of many more was sure to follow. This pantheism, folks, this is all about worshiping, understanding giants, that there are giants on this earth. Giants worshiping the host of heaven, the fallen angels coming down and giving secret power and knowledge through magic and sorcery. And that's what's going on. That's very important to understand. Do we hear that today?
No.
Not really, do we?
Nope.
Understanding about giants. Do we want to have that symbol of giants? Star of Moloch? Do we want to have that, or should we reject that?
Yeah, I think we should reject it.
Probably should reject it. Because whether you realize it or not, you're connecting yourself to the god of Moloch, Satanism, and dealing with devouring of children, whether you realize it or not. God says, don't worship Lucifer, worship me with all your heart, soul, and mind. Matthew 22, 37 through 40. So the way paid for bringing in all the abominations and crimes of which the mysteries became the scenes. Right? For to those who like not to retain God in their knowledge, he says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. How do you take on the armor of God, as mentioned in Psalm 91? Doesn't truth mentioned in Psalm 91 about truth? That's part of taking on the armor of God. So they did not retain God in their knowledge, who preferred some visible object of worship suited to the sensuous feelings of their carnal minds. Nothing could seem a more cogent reason for faith or practice than to hear with their own ears and command given forth amid so glorious a manifestation, apparently by the very divinity they adorn. Semiramis, Nimrod's wife, gained glory from her dead and deified husband, and the time of both them under the names of Rhea and Nin, goddess, mother, and son, were worshipped with an incredible enthusiasm. Their images were set up everywhere, all over the earth, and adorned. All right, brother, you have some, so let's get into some more verses. Now, once again, we learned about giants were pre-flood, and now they're post-flood. We have Nimrod, a giant, helped setting up the mystery Babylonian system that we're all under. And most Christians today worship Jesus Christ, and they're also partake in pagan customs as well.
In 2 Samuel 21:20 says, and there was yet a battle in Gath. There was a man of great stature that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 4 and 20 in number, and he also was born to the giant. And then in 1 Chronicles 24, or 1 Chronicles 20, verse 6, and yet again there was war at Gath, and there was a man of great stature whose fingers and toes were 4 and 20, 6 on each hand, 6 on each foot, and he also was a son of a giant.
So should we see giants today with 6 fingers and 6 toes? Have they been found?
That's why the Indians raised up their hand and said, how? Because they wanted to count the fingers. They wanted to make sure that, that you had 5 fingers and not 6. That's why they raise their hand and they go, how?
Oh.
Yeah.
Culture and custom. Intriguing.
Make sure that you got 5 fingers and 5 toes. Or 5 fingers anyway.
What about 2 Samuel 23, in there 19 through 21, dealing with 6 fingers and 6 toes? 2 Samuel 23, 19 through 21. Okay, was he not most honorable of thee? I'm going to make sure I have the right, I'm not sure if that's the right version. So I want to get to it. 2 Samuel 23, 19 through 21 states that, was he not most honorable of the 3? Therefore he was their captain. Howbeit he attained not unto the first 3. And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done many acts, he slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. He went down also and slew a lion in the midst of a pit. And he slew an Egyptian a goodly man, and the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but he went down to him with a staff, and he plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and slew him with his own spear.
Wow.
Valiant man. So learning all about these things. All right, fallen angels. We learned about fallen angels. Sons of God are always angels, are they not?
Mm-hmm.
Any doubt about that, folks? I mean, you're going to, oh, well, no, they're not really angels. We already covered that in Job 1:6, Job 2:1, and Job 37, verse 7. We don't need to read those again because they're pretty obvious. All right, more examples. We have Og, king of giants. We have mentioned in 1 Kings 4, verse 19, says, Geber, the son of Uri, was in the country of Gilead, in the country of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan, and he was the only officer which was in the land. So this is all about a giant, king Og, king of giants. And of course, we also have David and Goliath.
Right.
Goliath was a giant, was he not? He was a giant. So this is the reason why, folks, it's so important to understand all about what's happening. We have the mother goddess worship. We have the star of Moloch, all of these things. Do you have any more, Stephen? Do you have any, I'm going to read some more information on Tammuz. Unless you have some more scriptures on the giants.
Job, it says Job 16:14, he breaketh me with the breach upon breach and runneth upon me like a giant. And then we got Ecclesiastes. We got the wisdom of Solomon and Judah 16:7.
Okay.
Says the mighty one did fall by the young men, neither did the sons of the Titans smite him, nor high giants set upon him. And in the wisdom of Solomon 14:6 says, for in the old time also, when the proud giants perished, the hope of the world governed by thy hand escaped in a weak vessel.
Okay, so he's reading the apocryphal writings that are confirming what the Bible is saying, all about giants. So it's very important to understand. We can't really understand prophecy without understanding giants and what's going to happen.
Baruch 3:26 says, there were giants famous from the beginning that were of so great stature and so expert in war. 1 Maccabees 3:3, so he gat his people great honor and put on a breastplate as a giant. Ecclesiastes 16:7, he was not pacified towards the old giants who fell away in strength of their foolishness. Ecclesiastes 47:4, slew he not a giant when he was yet but young? So, yeah.
All about giants.
Yes.
All right. So continuing about this worship, this mother goddess worship is also about worshiping giants, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Worshiping giants. The mother goddess worship is found throughout all these civilizations. Mother goddess worship, and we know that came from Semiramis, and where did she get her information? Oh, she just kind of made it up. No, she got that from Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve. So we see Westminster Dictionary of the Bible talking about Tammuz. Tammuz is a deity of the Babylonians. All talking about Mystery Babylon. Called by them Damuzi. The Tammuz literature is translated orally many centuries before it was reduced to writing in Sumerian, land of Sumer, in the 3rd millennium. Tammuz was worshipped throughout Babylonia, Babylon, and in Assyria, Phoenicia, and Palestine, and he gave name to the 4th month of the Semitic year. Now notice that we're talking about, we talked about Shem. Shem was a great Christian, but you notice Satan continually twists these words and say, oh no, you're anti-Shemitic, and then using a giant symbol, the star of Moloch, a great child devourer, and then yoking that to somehow that's being Shemitic or Semitic. Satan always is going to flip it around. He's always going to take things and twist them. Like the rainbow is a great covenant that God made with humanity. Hey, rainbow, right? Rainbow is what happened, saying a promise by God saying, I'm never going to flood the earth with water anymore because of the giants. Now we can understand the rainbow tying into giants. That's the reason why we had a worldwide flood. And what does Satan do? He goes, oh man, that's the LGBT symbol.
Yeah.
Satan's always going to twist words. He's always going to change and try to undo God's creation. That's why God says take on the full armor of God, right? And worship him in spirit and in truth, not in lies. It's part of taking on the armor of God. So we see he was represented as dying annually and returning to life each reoccurring year. All right, so Ezekiel in his vision saw the worship of Tammuz, right? In Ezekiel 8 verse 14, the worship of Tammuz in the favor of the Israelites, right? Women sitting at the north gate. What were they doing? What were they doing? They were weeping for this god, were they not?
Yeah, and they were baking cakes to the weren't they baking cakes
to the Queen of Heaven? Yeah, and they're worshiping the sun.
Yeah, there it is. Verse 16? He brought me into the inner court of the house, and behold, the door of the temple, the porch and the altar. There were about 25 men with their backs towards the temple of the Lord and their faces towards the east, and they worshiped the sun.
And verse 14?
Verse 14. And they brought me to the door of the gate, the Lord's house, which is toward the north, and there they sat weeping. There the women sat weeping for Tammuz.
Yes. Weeping Tammuz, worshiping the sun, worshiping the host of heaven, weeping because of the giant, worshiping the giant, right? And so, Nimrod is all about Nimrod's birthday, right? Isn't that December 25th? Nimrod was a giant.
Yeah.
And what do all Christians do? They celebrate.
Yeah.
They worship the giant, do they not? Not here to judge, folks. I've celebrated it.
Yep.
We're not here to judge. We're just here to speak the truth, are we not? Because to take on be under God's armor, right, is to worship him in spirit and in truth, correct?
Yes.
Very important. It's not to worship him in spirit and lie. And he says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, right? Lack of knowledge. It says in Psalm 91 verse 4, it says, he shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Right. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Isn't that part of God's armor?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're lacking understanding his truth, we're like, hey man, I'm into Nimrod, I'm into Osiris and Horus, I'm into the phallic symbol. All of that has to do with December 25th, Christ Mass, right?
Yes.
A Mass. That's referring to Roman Catholicism. All of this is tied in. So we see here, this is significant since the cult of the Sumero-Akkadian Tammuz can scarcely have become popular before the 7th century BC. Cyril of Alexandria and Jerome identified him with the Phoenician god Adonis. Right? Stephen just read Ezekiel 8 verse 14. Mm-hmm. So the mother of the child, the Chaldean mysteries, can be traced back to the days of Semiramis, who lived only a few centuries after the flood. This is all about after the flood. So did they know what was going on at the flood? Yes. Yes, all of this history pre-flood was preserved in the post-flood. That's the reason why she knew. She impressed upon the minds of the people her own depraved and polluted mind. She was the beautiful, abandoned queen of Babylon that was a paragon of unbridled lust and licentiousness, and the mysteries which she had chief part in forming. She was worshipped as Rhea, the great mother of the gods. Great mother of the gods. That's why we have the metropolis, the mother city, the mother system. We talked about mother worship. Her atrocious rites identified her as Venus, the mother of all impurity. This is what we're talking about, that woman that rode the beast in Revelation. This system, right? And raised the very city where she had reigned to a bad eminence among the nations, as the grand seat at once of idolatry and consecrated prostitution. This Chaldean queen was a remarkable fit and prototype of the woman in the Apocalypse or Revelation, with the golden cup in her hand and the name on her forehead, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of this earth. But she was married to what? She was married to a giant.
Yeah.
She was married to a giant. So this is all about worshiping the giant, worshiping the star of Moloch. And most people today do not care.
No.
They don't care. The Babylonian system. Now, isn't this important? How the importance of giants ties into understanding the book of Revelation, understanding prophecy. That's why we talked about it's so important to understand biblical cosmology and understanding what happened. And the flood came about because of the giants, because of the angel and mankind infusion producing giants. And they're giants after. And Nimrod became a mighty one. And God's like, in case you missed it, he was a mighty one. In case you missed that again, he was a mighty hunter. I said it 3 times. God said it 3 times. That is significant. And that correlates to Genesis 6 verse 4. So the Babylonian system brought in a foul and wicked idolatry through secrecy to bind all mankind into blind and absolute submission to its hierarchy, right? Hierarchy. The world's ruled by a hierarchy. And it's like, well, I don't mean that. It doesn't matter. You're still a part of it, whether you realize it or not. And absolute submission to its hierarchy, entirely dependent on the sovereign priests of Babylon. Sacerdotalism, folks. Remember that the world is ruled by a division of angels and a ruling body of clergy. Mm-hmm. All knowledge, sacred and profane, came to be monopolized by the priesthood. They monopolize and hide this information, and they keep us in the dark. They keep us in the dark, who dealt it out to those who were initiated in the mysteries exactly as they saw fit. Thus, wherever the Babylonian system spread, the people were bound to the priests because they were the only depositories of religious knowledge. Same thing going on today, right? The Baal priests, they're the universities. They have all the information. They know what's going on. The Jesuits, IHS, Isis, Horus, Set, they know what's going on. They know God's true cosmology. So once again, come to the true knowledge, which is Jesus Christ. God bless you. Bye.